Donna and I have had a pretty wild ride, even in recovery. We had a last-minute cancellation last week, so we decided to jump in the studio anyways and rap out about life. For those who may not know, we spent 8 years together deep in addiction. In the end, our son was apprehended. Donna left the family home in search of answers, only to end up homeless and in an extremely violent relationship, and I found my way into treatment. You can find more about our journey through the links in the show notes, but tonight we're going to talk about our life in recovery. But before we do, what's up? My name's Dan, podcaster, keynote speaker, and advocate, and this is Hard Knocks Talks, your addictions podcast.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Mother's Day impromptu, would you call it impromptu?
Yep.
Edition of Hard Knocks Talks, second in-person interview.
I don't know.
Get Donna in here.
It's not an interview today.
Yeah, it's not really an interview.
No, it's
No.
just,
I know all the things already, so. But happy Mother's Day.
thank you.
Happy Mother. And what a great afternoon we had
It was a
today.
wonderful day. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been on my mind actually, like, what was it like? And I can't believe we haven't really even talked about this, but like coming into recovery, and having a child in care with your parents, and then he was with me, and you were hearing that stuff on the street,
Mhm.
and knowing that I'd found my way into recovery, and that you wanted so badly to find your way.
Mhm.
Tell us what that was like coming into recovery and actually coming to realize that there might be an opportunity to reconnect with your son.
Mhm. Well, when I first learned that you had gotten care, the only thing I can sum it up to was extremely jealous.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the underlying emotion attached to that is anger, or whatever. There's a certain, anger is usually at the bottom of many of the emotions that we feel.
Fear, I think, is like
Is that the overarching? Do I have it backwards? Whatever.
I don't know.
Anyways, I was extremely upset about that, and it was just very hopeless. So that was really hard to deal with. And then coming into recovery, finding out I was pregnant was a big shock, and terrifying, because the situation that I was in. And, I feared that if I carried the baby full term, it would be an apprehension at the hospital, because I was aware of the fact that, the accepted practice was when there's been ministry involvement, you're red flagged, and then, immediate apprehension at the hospital. So I had this overwhelming fear that I was going to lose that baby, from the moment she was born, or I didn't know at the time if it was boy or girl, but so it was all very, very overwhelming and terrifying. And, I wasn't sure if I wanted to face that,
Mm-hmm.
but because of the community-based organizations that rallied around me, I learned of the prenatal pilot project that was being run by the ministry, which was an opportunity for mother-to-be's to advocate for why they should be able to bring the baby home. And at first I was extremely reluctant to join that program because I had so much mistrust in the ministry. And, but it was a very close worker who convinced me that it would be the best. And if anybody was a good candidate for that program, it was myself, because I had made, such progress in that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And then, I had the underlying hope that whatever came of that would help me in my attempts to reconnect with Graydon,
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll never forget the first time that we had a visit behind what school is that again?
I can't recall the name of it.
Is it St. Michael's?
It might be.
St. Michael's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember walking up, and I don't know, I've always been the kind of guy that wants to capture everything and record everything and have all the moments and everything like that. And I'll never forget, but something just said you got to record this,
Mm-hmm.
So what was your thoughts like when I when I came strutting up and like you saw Grady, but you saw me with the camera? Like what was going through your head?
Uh, well, of course, it was a fear of judgment and a fear of like, is this going to be like, what if this doesn't go well and then you use it against me in court or something,
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it was very overwhelming and it was really hard to um, sort of relish in that moment of seeing him for the first time after so long.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That was really challenging for both of us. Like I didn't know how to act, you know? Like of course there was a lot of anger because at the time I didn't understand,
Hmm.
right? Like I had no idea what you had, what the circumstances were around what you'd experienced. Like I know that you'd gone to the street and I know that awful things happened and I knew all that, but I was still blaming you,
Hmm.
you know? So and I've said this before many times, like when I first learned that you'd come into recovery, I was skeptical, but
Hmm.
I was angry,
Hmm.
you know? And I'll talk more about this a little bit later, but like it was like you'd think that a guy would be like, "Oh, thank God my son's mother is safe now and she's going to be okay." And but it felt like such
Hmm.
a threat to who I'd become.
Hmm.
You know, I had become the single dad and everybody was so proud of me. And, you know, I was the golden goose, you know, I was all of these things. And, you know, like, and I like to, back then I'm like, oh, I'm so humble. And, but like, man,
Sort of laugh.
yeah, no, you're not. But you know, you get work in a program, and you get, you know, you start to find some basic successes in life, and you know, successes are relative, you know, but having a car and having a job and having this and having that, and you start to get confident, and then of course the affliction comes in, and you get a little arrogant, and but yeah, that it changed who I was in
Hmm.
one sentence when your dad came and said, Donna's back.
Hmm.
My life was different now.
Hmm.
You know, my the single father who I'd become, the life that I had built was now threatened.
Hmm.
It has to change. So yeah, and I did my best, and I think we both did our best, really.
Hmm.
You know, but what was it like? Like when you first started getting visits? Like now that first visit, now you just said that it was hard to relish in because I was there judging you.
Well, aside from the judgment from you,
Mm-hmm.
there was that, that bond with Graydon had been broken,
Mm.
and I daydreamed so many times about, reconnecting with him and what would that look like and how would that go and how would he react, and like, your brain starts racing. And then um of course, you have that romanticized side of things. He'd be like, "Oh, mommy," and come running and give me a big hug, and it would be crying, and it would be wonderful and so lovely and storybook and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's that fear of like, what if it's not at all like that? Like, what if he's angry, and what if he doesn't want to hug me, and
Mm-hmm.
and like it was somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
It was somewhere in between. And so I knew that I had to be cautious. Like I couldn't just bear hug him and start crying and I love you and I missed you and all those things. Like I knew that that would be too much for him just based on like how his approach was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I was also extremely concerned how he would react with the learning that I was pregnant.
Mm.
And for the first, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, he didn't even acknowledge that I basically looked like I had a basketball shoved under my shirt,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
until he got a little bit more comfortable around me and he was playing on the playground and then he went up higher than me. And I don't know if there's some symbolism to that or whatever, but, in terms of like a child's perception of things, but he went way up on that platform and he pointed down. I'll never forget, he hands on his shoulders or hips. He's like, "Is there a baby in there?" And I was just like, oh, my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy, there is,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, "Oh, okay."
Hmm.
And mommy, watch me go down the slide. And I was like, okay, that was interesting. And then he came down the slide and proceeded to find a ball that he could shove up his shirt and then he wanted a picture because he looked like mommy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I
uh,
remember that picture's around here somewhere still.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I sensed a bit of bonding in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was still my like my whole being just wanted to hug him, like just hold him so tight and not let him go. I knew that that would not, translate well for him, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so hard to not just squeeze him
Mm-hmm.
and tell him how much I missed him and tell him how much I loved him. But at that same time, I was trying to be very respectful of his.
Was that like a feeling of duty, like you should say these things, you
Mm-mm.
should make him try to feel comfortable, or was that like a genuine, like the inside, like the love was just coming out and you couldn't?
It was a genuine, inherent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many nights and days that I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And sometimes the only way to stop crying was to use.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would be not crying for a day or two. But the minute the drugs wore off, I was bawling like I had lost my child,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, yeah. And like having that no contact for as long as I did, like I felt like a level of mourning, like I had lost a child. And I think that's why when I hear of parents talk about losing a child to overdose or cancer or whatever the case may be, like there is a certain level of me that can empathize with just how deep that pain is felt
Mm-hmm.
because I had no contact with him. I had no way to contact him. It was
Mm-hmm.
really freaking hard to deal with.
I remember leaving that visit and I put him in the old Lexus. I had I say it and it sounds flashy, but it was like a 97 Lexus something. I mean, it was a good
It
car.
was a nice
I
car.
liked it. It
Yep.
had a sunroof and a V8 and the leather, but it was worn. But I was like, I was like, got a Lexus.
Big pimpin'.
Yeah, yeah, like 5 minutes sober. I got her made. I'll never forget getting that car, man. That was a moment for me. Like that was a milestone for me because like in my story, and I'll come back to what I was gonna say. I'm not gonna like totally go off into the weeds here, but like when I got sober and I asked my mom for rides around and
Mm,
stuff, and she helped me so much, like and the way that she helped me still is a significant part of my story and a very important part of my story when we're talking about advocacy. But she refused to give me a ride, and you know this story. I'm just
mhm,
saying this for anyone who might not. um I got out of treatment and we got back to Saskatoon and I started asking for rides everywhere, and she's like, no.
mhm,
And she went and took me to the pawn shop and bought me a bike, and I pedaled my ass around for like a year,
mhm.
and then I got Grady back and I was dragging him in a cart behind the bike and all of the things. So when I got that, all to say though, was like when I got that car though, that was a shiny new Lexus to me.
Absolutely.
That really was a
Mhm,
$2,000 car, man. I was on top of the world.
mhm.
So, but when I was leaving, and you guys ended up riding, you and your worker, Wendy. I'm sure we can say her
Yeah,
name.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's okay. Hi,
So
Wendy.
yeah,
Love
shout
you.
out Wendy if you're watching. Thank you for all of that,
All the things.
all
Oh
of
my
the
God.
things. But
Like real life angel.
yeah, yeah. I remember you were driving, you were coming up beside, and then I didn't notice, but Grady had unbuckled his seatbelt
Hmm?
and was like standing in the back and like jumping around. And like you guys saw that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be in the courtroom for sure. It's like, I like went, oh my God. Like I'm supposed to be
Well,
this big responsible guy and like kids bouncing around unbuckled in the back seat.
at that point, I had no interest or inclination towards court.
Yeah.
I was beyond hopeful that we would be able to resolve things outside of the courtroom
Mm-hmm.
because having that legal background,
Mm-hmm.
I know how dirty it can get. And like courts draws a greater wedge between people.
Mm-hmm.
Like even though it presents like this like collaborative law and negotiation and like mediation and these things, ultimately I would say like 90% at least of the time, because of the adversarial nature of it,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly difficult for there to be any sort of for people to not walk away with like really hard feelings,
Really deep resentment.
really deep resentment.
And we did.
I mean, there is that 10% who go into it already with the idea of working things out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're entering that judicial system with like we're fighting it out and we're trying to get what we need and what we want, and there's no meeting of the minds, and the lawyers are also feeding into that,
Mm-hmm.
disaster.
Man, there was one point even where we'd had judgment, and my lawyer wanted to appeal it. And even shortly after, when I stopped it, like I finally like, no, I was in right away. Like I was like, yeah, let's go, you know, Ed. But after, you know, cooler minds prevail. And I thought it out, and I'm like, man, like the hair follicle was clean. Like she's not high.
How long did that go back? Like
3 months or something.
No, it was like 9 months or something.
I don't know.
Crazy.
The hair follicle test, like when that came back, all of our jaws hit the floor, and I'm like,
and I was like,
I don't blame you. I would have too. In fact, I probably would have done more. But yeah, when it came back, and then she wanted to appeal.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay. But I was like, why?
Yeah.
You know? And then she's like, well, do you want her? Like a whole thing, you know? And then and she admitted, she's like, well, maybe I'm just a sore loser. So she was willing to go into court again.
Well, of course she was. It's
Simply-
your dime.
Simply because she lost, not because it was, So like what I was getting at though is like when we were driving down the street after that very first visit, like, were you happy with how it went, or were you analyzing every single thing and how things went wrong, and even the smallest detail was disastrous? Like tell us what it was like after the first visit.
It was really, I don't know that I was so much focused on like what went wrong or those sorts of things. I was more focused on like, when is the next one going to be? What can I do to get another visit? What can I do to get a longer visit? You know, that's where my thoughts were going with that. You know, and then like, of course, the hope that how that went would have somehow appeased you, and you'd be more amicable to granting more access at that time.
I want to take a quick break and shout out the treatment center I attended when I got sober. Pine Lodge Recovery offers inpatient treatment and aftercare programming in Regina, Saskatchewan. To inquire about services or make a donation, call 306-510-1891 or find their link in the show notes below. If you want to foster productive conversations about substance use in your community, organization, or event, reach out to me at daniel@hardknockstalks.com to learn more about our public speaking options. Now, let's get back at it. So we could not be amicable. Looking back now, I think we could have had we had more experience. If we knew then what we knew now, things may have been different. But
you know, one thing I'd like to talk about is like during that time, you know, I'm very pregnant with Kendra, and like every night, it seemed like, you know, from very early on in the pregnancy, anytime I would think about Grady and start really missing him, like she would start moving around in my tummy. It was almost like this, like, I'm here. That was kind of my intuition on it, is like, it's okay, you're not alone, I'm here, that kind of thing. And then if I was crying because I missed him, then she would really start moving around. And I remember one night in particular, I'd been crying and I was looking at his picture and stroking his face and telling him I love him and I miss him and I can't wait to see him. And you know, I put the picture down on my tummy and she kicked it. So that became our nightly routine for months. Yeah.
So tell us about actually becoming a mother.
Excuse me. Which time?
I mean, like, you
And
were,
both times were terrifying. I mean,
it,
with Graydon, as you will recall,
yeah.
whatever happened with the epidural, his heart stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like the nurse jumping on top of me and trying to manipulate him back into a heartbeat. And when that didn't work, I remember being like they're running down the hallway. It was like something you'd see on like that TV show ER.
Mm-hmm.
And we hit the surgery doors into the operating room. Like, I don't, it was just like bang, and the doors went flying open, and there's white lights everywhere, and people are running around like I was a gunshot victim. It
Mm-hmm.
was surreal. And then I got lifted onto from that bed onto the operating table, and bright white light in my eyes, and people are still scrambling around. And I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. And nobody's talking except for like whatever terms that they're using to get ready for
Mm-hmm.
surgery.
And we're both on methadone at this time.
Yeah,
Just to be clear, and we suspect that that was not taken into account
yeah,
when they gave you the epidural.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. So, and then so I'm laying there, and then I see the gas mask coming at me. When anything comes at your face, you're a little bit freaked out by that. And then two hands come over top and start choking me. And I'm just like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to hyperventilate and panic. And I hear the surgeon, I guess, say to me, it's okay. I need to restrict your airway so that the gas hits faster, because I need to get you out as quickly as possible, or we're going to lose the baby. So at that point, I stopped fighting. And then it just went black. And I don't know how long it was later that I came to. And you know how it is when you're coming out of anesthetic, you come to and you're groggy and everything's fuzzy. And then it hit me. I'm like, where's my baby?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw you sitting over holding him. And I was like, oh, thank God, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really emotional moment.
Yeah. Well, and likewise, I was on the other side of all that. I mean, I was right beside you when the alarm started going off,
Yeah.
and they came in and like they jumped on you and they did all the things and they started ripping hoses out of the wall, and you were gone.
Yeah.
You were gone.
No explanation, no nothing.
And when things got crazy for you, they went quiet for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just quiet. Like, what the hell happened?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was sitting outside the delivery room, and all of a sudden I hear that cry.
Mm-hmm. I missed his first cry.
Yeah.
And Kendra made up for it.
Yeah. To this very day.
Her first cry, I'm pretty sure the entire hospital heard.
Yeah.
All the nurses and doctors started laughing. They're like, oh, she's got some good lungs.
She really does. Yeah, she really does.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, and that's a powerful part of our story, right? Because I remember holding him and I didn't know what was happening to you. I had no idea what was going on, because I went into that room and here he is on the warming table, and I look over your way and there's like blood and there's like people just around. I'm like, oh, how do you deal with that? So I remember holding him out in the hallway and looking down at him, and he's looking up at me, and I'm like, what's up, buddy? Like, I hope she's okay. So, but anyways, that we took a big old step back there. Yeah. Kathy says childbirth is not always textbook. I can attest to that. So, but yeah, I mean, what I meant though, like when you became a mother, like after you found recovery and now you're uncertain of so many things, and you're concerned that your daughter, Kendra, is going to be apprehended at birth. What was it like when that was alleviated, when you got to take Kendra home and you got to see Graydon, and maybe we can step forward enough to say, like, when we did get 50-50 custody and you did have Kendra, what was that like, that first little bit?
Cloud 9.
Yeah. Even though it was hard as shit.
Oh, it was so hard. And I mean, there was a lot of, again, fear. Like, how am I going to manage 2 kids? And, Kendra being an infant, there's a lot goes into that. Like, I mean, they feed every 2 hours. There's very little sleep. Like, you're lucky if you get to brush your teeth. You're so busy or tired, So, and then here I'm trying to reconnect or reestablish a bond with Graydon, and because I mean, we'd be avoiding an elephant in the room if we didn't address the stretch of time that I wasn't like I'd made that re-entry and started to rebuild that connection with him, and then there was the court, but the court happened because you denied access for a long time. And then, of course, the court process itself is a long process. I think that took almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was heartbroken for him in the sense of like, here he thought mom was back.
Mm-hmm.
And then, boom, I'm gone again.
Mm-hmm.
He's too little to understand what's going on, but I was terrified that he thought that I had left again. And that was crushing.
Mm-hmm.
It was so hard to live with and to deal with every day. And I remember my dad, multiple times, he was like, how are you okay? Like, how are you dealing with this? And still like relatively stable. Of course, I'm crying and there's things, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out there. I haven't relapsed. And all I could say to my dad is like meditation and breath work, Dad, you should try it. But yeah, it was constant, meditation and breath work and subliminal messaging and, power of positive thinking and surrender. Like there had to be a reason for this and like all that kind of stuff that you hear so much of.
Mm-hmm.
I bought in,
Mm-hmm.
had to.
So looking back now, sitting where you're at right now, what do you suppose that reason was? Well, Dan, you were stupid.
Well, oh, I haven't really given it a lot of thought. I'm not the type of person to microanalyze things. I just tend to accept things
Mm-hmm.
for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're not meant to know the reason why things happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't questioned that.
Hmm. I think sometimes things happen to prepare us.
Mm.
I think that, and you can agree or not. It's just this is, I think that we go through hard times to build resolve for when the real work has to begin.
Mm-hmm.
And as bad as that was, it has prepared both of us to be able to have conversations like this, because the court system hasn't improved. The system, the ministry hasn't improved. People are still going through things like this. Lawyers are still throwing fuel on the fire.
Well, okay, so if I give it a second to think about it right now, I wonder if the reason for that was basically to show you how strong I was and how steadfast I was in my recovery, because like for real, man, if anything was going to make me relapse, that would have been the time.
It took, I think we gave each other the side eye for a number of years after that. Bombastic side eye, as our son would say.
Yeah.
And people may be listening to this and wondering like, how the hell are we sitting here today?
I think a lot of people wonder that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, when I took that parenting after separation and divorce class, I was the only person in that room that was actively listening and engaged. And, most of the people there were like, because it's a part of the court process. You have to take it because you have to submit the certificate to the court with your initiating documents. And, but I took a lot away from that, like the importance of basically trying to create as much normalcy as you can for the child that's caught in the middle, and I'd seen so many situations in my past life where parents did not do that and the child was used as a pawn and, basically weaponized. And I couldn't understand how they could do that to a kid, so I wanted, there had been so much damage done to Graydon. I just wanted so badly for things to be okay for his sake, you know? And yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was like walking on eggshells around you, you know? Like,
I was terrified. Like when we came out of court,
yeah.
like I was like that was, and I've said it many times, like I've been through a lot of things in my life, and that was the darkest time of my life at that time, you know. So I think we were both walking on eggshells, because the last thing I wanted to do after that court had been settled was to get back into it. Like I was so scared to say something wrong, or to do something wrong, or to anything to initiate that process again. That I don't know if I would have survived it. It was terrifying. It was so scary. Now I'm doing the nervous laugh. I always tell Donna not to do this. She laughs when things aren't funny sometimes, when it gets real heavy. But I'm telling you, like you think you were walking on eggshells, and you were, I have no doubt. But I also was, and you know, there was still that different things that hadn't been settled yet. It was terrifying. Yeah,
it was. But you know, in like I referenced the nights of crying over lost connection with Graydon, but throughout all that, I missed you. I missed the family unit that we could have been. And I had this strong desire to fix things, because deep down I knew that we could be what we are now.
You did not.
I did so.
You did not know that we could be deadly podcasters.
Okay, well, maybe not that but I knew that we could be a really great family.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, I just surrendered. And as much as I wanted something, at the same time, I recognized that, you know, whatever will be, and things will go in whatever direction they're meant to. So, but there was always that desire to reconcile, you know?
And like you say that you always knew what we could be. And like, for me, it was like, that is still being revealed to me to this day. Last night with Kendra, I went to the store with our daughter, you know. Oh my God. Kendra's quite possibly my greatest teacher. Quite possibly. There is about a 70% chance, I would say, that little girl has taught me more about myself than anything else on this planet. So, but to having said that, like, when I see a glimpse of that girl's soul, of that girl's playful soul, and she's not infuriating me, and she's not bouncing around and being too loud and not listening and all of that, there's this beautiful little soul in there, you know, and a little bit more of that was revealed to me just last night, you know. And then last week, building the bed with our son, our son got a new bed, and a little bit more of that beautiful life was revealed to me, because I get so caught up in not doing it right, and the kids aren't doing it right, and then I'm guilty because I'm not doing it right, because I'm too worried about them not doing it right, and I don't even know what it is. You know? So you say that you knew how the family that we could be, and I have to admit that to this very day, that's still being revealed to me, you know. So,
well, it's not as if I could predict the specifics of, but there was all that potential.
Got some comments.
Cool.
We've got Barb.
Hi, Barb.
My friend Barb. Let's see. I would say Barb's a family friend. Barb says, thank you. Barb says, thank you both for sharing your journeys with such honesty and compassion. Important and inspiring conversation. Thank you, Barb. Let's see. Onyx. Glad you're here tonight, Onyx. Onyx says, Bless you both for doing the effing hard work and heal each other so you can heal your family. I am so effing proud of the warriors you both are. Aho. I always feel like I'm saying that wrong. Aho.
No, that's correct.
Is it? Good.
Yeah.
Kathy says, Donna, your instincts were so correct. Your family of 4 is a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yes, your instincts are impeccable. I agree. You have an amazing husband. I've noticed.
I do. I really do.
So humble, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's his number one trait.
His amazingness is only seconded by his humility.
Yes, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. So let's jump forward a little bit. Now we reconciled. That was like did you see that coming? Because like when we started working together on the show and you started your show and we were working together on that and we were just getting closer and closer and closer together, were your intuitions telling you anything at that time?
No.
Not at all.
No, because like I was alluding to there, that I had basically surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't picking, like, I'm not very good at picking up vibes to begin with, but I just had resigned myself to the concept that there had been too much history and damage for us to ever be a unit. You know, I wanted it badly, but if that was not to be, for so long as we could be amicable and give Graydon some stability, I was prepared to live with that. But I was not, I was not seeking out any other partners or mates, whatever. Like I was like, whatever, I'll be a single mom for the, that's fine. So, and yeah. And given some of the things that you had said and things, I just, you blindsided me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I may have blindsided myself. But I mean, there was, that was when we started working together and you went live for the first time and we've told the story before, but there was just something about us working together collaboratively outside of parenting, but from a place of passion. And not passion for each other necessarily, but passion towards a goal that was outside of both of us. To me, something clicked in me, and yeah, like after I like this is gonna be weird if we do this and we're not together. And I remember you're like,
well, so it
what?
just before that conversation, we had like our Friday night pizza night or whatever it was that we were doing with the kids. I remember like putting the pizza down and bending over to like give Kendra her slice or whatever. And I, how like, I don't know, spidey senses. I was like, is he staring at my ass? I'm like, no. I must be imagining that. Like, no, Donna, get your head out of your butt.
Yeah.
So then when we had that conversation, I was like, oh, I bet he was.
Oh my God, he was looking at my butt. So, and it's funny because like Kendra started calling me daddy right away.
Yeah.
And from the very first time she called me daddy, which was probably like, it was because Grady called me dad, right? And that's what I assume. It didn't bug me. And I don't know if you realized that at all, but it seemed like it surprised you more than it surprised me.
Well, I mean, it was more, sort of surprise might not be the right word for it. It was more like the appropriateness of it. I didn't want her to be confused, so I would say, that's not daddy, that's Dan, trying to make that distinction or whatever. But
she doesn't listen.
She doesn't.
Yeah.
And I remember one time like correcting her and you're like, it's okay. I don't mind. I've been called worse. I'm like, yeah, I know, but just don't want her to be confused and, heartbroken someday. So, yeah.
So we, we moved in together, like quite quickly too, actually,
Mm.
which I'm sure people would have judged us for that. Like, what was it, like 2 months or something?
Yeah. It
Like,
was very short.
yeah. Looking back on that now, I mean, that was maybe, we're really lucky that worked.
Yeah.
We
We
are.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But something, and man, we worked our asses off.
Mm-hmm.
Like for 2.5 years, we lived in that little tiny rental, and
Mm-hmm.
Grady and Kendra had a bunk bed and no privacy. Like there was no like, like
There was 0 degrees of separation in the
yeah,
house.
0. Like,
And a big dog and 2 cats and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And what the upstairs, and it's what we lived in, was like maybe 700 square feet,
maybe at
maybe
best. Yeah.
for a family of 4 with 2 cats and a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was wild, but
Yeah.
like,
And then university students living in the basement.
oh, that was sucky. That was like the last 6 months though.
Yeah.
It was pretty good before that. I mean, Sandy was cool.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, they were pretty good too, but
Yeah.
they're 20 and
Yeah.
yeah.
That was his first home too,
Yeah.
like away from home.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
was some
It was
moments there.
interesting.
Yeah. I remember did you hear what they were doing down there?
It's Sunday afternoon.
It's Sunday afternoon. Why are they doing that?
Well, I really wouldn't care except for it was like very, very loud
Yeah, there's kids.
upstairs and it was quiet upstairs. I was like, oh my God. Awkward.
Yeah, and we tried, like last year, we tried to buy a home.
Mm-hmm.
We did,
Yeah.
and I'll never forget, like, just going and looking at, like,
Man, we pre-qualified for like sheds in the hood.
yeah, and we
type.
even went and we were so like hopeful.
Yeah.
That we went looking.
Yeah.
And like these houses, man.
Yeah.
So like every time we'd go out and look, it was just like disheartening,
Mhm.
because like we worked so hard and we wanted to get just like, we want a home for these kids and for us and have like a good life and have a studio and have all of the things, and it's just, man, that was disheartening when it didn't
Well,
work
they
out.
wouldn't even, because I was only working part-time, so they wouldn't even consider my income. Plus, I had no credit rating,
Like not even a bad credit rating.
No, just a 0 credit rating.
Yeah, like this woman can clearly live without credit, so we're going to penalize her for that. And him too, just for being associated with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guilty by association.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's amazing the difference a year can make.
Really? And now we qualified for more than we can afford.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Give us your soul.
yeah, it's crazy how I don't even care to understand. In fact, we don't even need to go down that rabbit hole. But
even the beginning of this adventure this year was crazy making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
how fast houses were going off the market, and like a lot of the specific area that we wanted to be in, the pricing, the property values was just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this just was like an answer to our prayers, and
yeah.
I think I'm still in like a significant state of shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
there are no words for just like, is this really happening, or did I step into an alternate reality?
Yeah. Like, look at the room we're in right now.
I know.
This is
And
crazy.
the kids have their own room, like,
and
we just painted Kendra's pink, so she's like,
yeah. What was it
on the
like?
moon.
What was it like? And I said I was going to talk about this. So when we moved in, the battle had been so long, and quite honestly, like we can consider this a 7-year battle for me. We lost everything. The house sold. We didn't lose the house that we lived in together. Like I owned it and all of the things, but it sold at the last possible minute because it was in the final stages of foreclosure.
Yeah.
So from that point on, and I remember handing those keys over. I remember that I got out. The house sold while I was in treatment, and it was a wreck. It was an absolute wreck, and You'd think that like when I handed those keys over, that would have been a moment of defeat. You know what I mean? Like I have officially lost.
Yeah.
When I handed those keys over, it was like a breath of freedom. It is like I had gotten my wings. I was free. You know, I just had no desire left to try and save that.
Mm-hmm.
That was done. But from that point on, that was the rebuilding. Okay, clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, bankrupt, but like clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, it's been about trying to find my way. You know,
Yeah.
and when we walked through this door the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and we started moving things in, and the studio started coming together and the house started coming together, and I know we talked about this, I told you about it, I got really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got
Yeah, you did.
like really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I lost my identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was no longer the person that was trying to achieve these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, it would be so beautiful to have a home. I'm fighting so hard. Oh, can you imagine having like an actual studio and not just a tiny little sunroom on the side of your bedroom where you can't even.
Where Donna's face melts.
Yeah. Yeah. This tiny little room with big lights right in Donna's face, and
Yeah.
Donna's face matters. But like, it's like, I wasn't that anymore. I wasn't the guy that was trying to achieve those things.
Mm-hmm.
I was the guy that had a goal.
Mm-hmm.
I had a goal. I had a dream. And when I achieved those dreams, I didn't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know where to go. What am I doing now? I've arrived. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And that just showed me that life isn't about the destination. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I needed a new destination.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me like a solid week to really, and I kept myself busy, and I kept building the studio, and I kept doing all of the things, and I stayed focused. But inside of me, I was lost. I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm on the other side of that feeling, and new goals have been revealed to me, and new opportunities have been revealed to me, and new all of the things, and life is the mindset is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like for you? Like when we walked through this door and we handed those keys up to that old place away, and we were free from that, and that stage was over.
Mm-hmm.
You got here. What was that like?
It was very surreal. But it was, yeah, like we've achieved this goal. And like I felt like I was in this like holding pattern in that house, the old house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't ours, and like not only was it not ours, I had moved into yours and Grady's space, you know? So there was all your furnishings, there was all your stuff. Like I purged a whole bunch of stuff moving in.
Mm-hmm.
So it just never felt like there was any part of me there, you know? I felt like I was kind of more like existing or occupying space there than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So now being here, it's just a whole new ball game. And like you talked about how like hyper focused I became on furniture.
Just the couches. I mean, other things, yes, and like paint and stuff like that, yes. But those couches, man, like you spent like I didn't see you while you were sitting in the house. But like, I feel like I didn't have a meaningful conversation with you for like a week. Cause like I'd even be talking to you about important things and you'd be like, huh? Yeah. What? Huh? What? Huh? Like scrolling away.
Uh-huh. So it would have been one thing if it was like, you know, any sofa and love seat, whatever would sort of fit in the space, but we have a very unique space to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, because this is our space, you know, for me, there was like that, really wanting to make it our own, you know, so trying to find something that you'd be agreeable with in terms of design
Mm-hmm.
and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to have quite opposite tastes, although sometimes we do align.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of the stuff was too big or whatever the case, or wrong color, because we had a very specific color we needed because of the kids and the dog and the cats.
We got a couch to match our dog.
we did kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't lay him down on the fabric swatches or the fabric swatches on him, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had very specific needs for furniture, and there was limited options, locally, and then, furniture is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if we had, you know, a big budget, it would have been like, whatever, I'm just going to get that sofa because that's exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but because we had this limited budget, trying to, but yeah, it was a real process.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to walk into our space and feel joy. I want to walk into the space and be like, I am home. This is my sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not have that at that old space.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I haven't really had that feeling since I had my first little house
On B,
on Avenue B,
where we met.
Mm-hmm. So I have been longing for that. I have felt displaced ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I truly was displaced for a number of years. And then early in recovery, I was in this apartment for a little while, but not even a year. And then I moved into that different apartment for like 6 months. And then I moved into a house. I was there for 2 years, but of course I knew that was not my forever home.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this stuff, I mean, I'm deeply grateful, but it was donations or freebies or, nothing that was mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like I said, for 20 years, I've fantasized about IKEA furniture. And now I'm finally getting my IKEA furniture.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess there's like, and there's like a level of like of a guilt in that,
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know. I mean, so many people worry about their meal tomorrow, let alone an IKEA sofa.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, IKEA is not top shelf stuff, but it's wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
But there are sofas out there that are quite a bit more.
Yeah. Like that table in that window of that shop on 20th that every time we drive by, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I love you. Yeah. Got some comments. Onyx says, when we truly surrender to remove the glasses of our stories, we can truly see in our soul with the authenticity of acceptance, wisdom, grace, and kindness. It opens the door to the abundance of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And Barb says, Donna's face melting needs to be in the best of HKT reels someday, or highlights. And Kathy wants to talk about your pots.
Okay, so confession time. Even I am scared to use the pots.
Yeah.
I haven't used them yet. They came with instructions that say do not use on high heat. And I'm like, well, how do you cook with them now?
And don't put salt until the water's boiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're not allowed to cook it on or use high heat with them, how are you going to get the water to boil?
And what's the benchmark? What's high heat?
I don't know.
We got like a gas stove. Like, how do we know?
I'm so confused.
I'm scared. We took them out of the box and we put them in their special cupboard and they stay there now. We don't open that cupboard door.
Yeah. I'm still using my old pots and pans.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for anyone who might not know, I mean, those pots and pans are significant, right? And I was pissed off when I came home and you opened them without me. I was mad.
I'm sorry.
I was legitimately mad. I'm okay. It's okay.
I got excited.
I know. That happens. So, but I'm going to use it forever now.
I know
you know, because like with Grady's bed, you're like, did you open it yet? And you're not home. I'm like, no, I would never do that. I would never open an important box without you. But the story is like you got those pots when you were living you were on assistance. You were on welfare, so to speak. I mean, that's, single mom on welfare, living off the system. And then you even got transferred onto the CIS program, which everyone knows is a train wreck. I mean, you lost several $100s a month and bad things happen.
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then you were already scraping.
Yeah.
So, and that's around the time your dad bought you those pots.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like,
I think he got
I could have used a check instead, Dad. Like,
I think he got them for like
Christmas or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, because the pots and pans that I was using weren't cooking things evenly.
No,
and it was really, really challenging. And so this was his gesture of, Yeah, here's some stability.
Yeah. But I remember like I had pots and pans in Trache House too, and they were like forever grateful forever grateful for everything that I had. But, you know, like the pan would be wobbly and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I just thought that was life until, you know, I saw you make pancakes on it, and I want to make pancakes on those pans too, but I'm scared. I don't want to scratch it. But you were like you were in heaven making pancakes. You're like, oh my God, all of these years it's been the pan. Thank God. It's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, and we've afforded ourselves some luxuries in this life. You know, I mean, we've been Sea-Doo people for the last couple of years now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you've confessed in the past, like, man, like I kind of feel a little guilty sometimes because like I used to be that person that was sitting on the beach, and we see people
Mm-hmm.
on the beach
Mm-hmm.
that are sitting there, and some of them are in a real bad way. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we had to get a wellness check.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Oh, I do. I remember.
Oh,
Sorry.
Donna's mom alarm is going off. Mom responsibility, engage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're just about done. But, you know, like, well, I don't know how else to really ask it, but like for me, it's like, sometimes it hits me like a ton of bricks, and it's not a guilt. It's just like, holy cow. Like, it's like you wait for so long and then all of a sudden everything happens,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like to watch you, like, and you get awfully brave on those Sea-Doos when you're out there, and like, I'll watch you and I'll be sitting on the shore and I'll remember, and I remember us, and I remember you. I remember you in a bad way. And I remember just thinking like, she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to die.
I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And there was a time I even basically begged, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can't handle this anymore. Like there comes a point where it's just too much. And if this is how I'm going to go, can you
Expedite this.
please just get it over and done with?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So what's it like for you out on those Sea-Doos? Like we go, and I don't want to flex. I'm not trying to flex. I'm not trying to, like, you know, please don't mistake my confidence for arrogance. It's hard fought. But I mean, we go out in the backyard now and we have beautiful little garden area and a deadly fire pit that I built. It's deadly.
It is deadly.
But I mean, you open the garage door and there's the Sea-Doo
Mm.
and all of the things, and we work so goddamn hard for it.
Mm.
What goes through your head? Like, do you ever feel like you miss out on that? Like, does it ever like just hit you, like when you walk out and you see a certain thing, or does it hit you?
Oh, absolutely. It hits me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you don't deserve it sometimes?
Sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah. And then there's that other part that's like, when I was out in the life, you know, I couldn't understand why I was going through that. Like, what did I do to deserve that? You know? And then now on the other side of it, it's like, why do I deserve to be saved? Like, why do I deserve to be here while others don't or aren't, or, you know, are taken? So there's a lot of mixed feelings that come along with where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So grateful. So what would you say if you could talk to you, or there's someone out there that you know or that you don't know that is where you were? What would you say?
I always struggle with this because I hate to patronize people, you know, because a lot of times, like, you hear these inspirational words, and I remember hearing things of similar nature when I was in the life, and I was like, oh, whatever, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I wish I had something like awe-inspiring or poster worthy to say in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, you know, the most important thing is to not give up and to keep trying to find the help that you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody deserves to suffer. Nobody deserves to be living the way that some folks are living. And I see it growing often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we live in an area where we see it.
To get
We're
anywhere,
in it. Yeah.
you know, we have to, and like, I drive by the Salvation Army every morning taking the kids to school, and I don't say, hey kids, look.
Yeah, no.
You know, I ain't like that.
No.
But they see,
Of course they do.
you know, and we drive down 20th, and you're right. It's getting worse and worse and worse. There's tents. There's just people under blankets in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we've been placed here for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
where we're at.
I was recently talking to somebody who was expounding on all the things that are wrong with the world, and, you know, money is God, and all that type of thing. And I did say, like, I can't disagree
Mm-hmm.
with you, but there are people that are fighting for folks like you. There are people who are trying to make change and trying to reach people, and trying to support people. It's not an easy task. I mean, I'm on front lines, I see and I interact with a lot of people who are experiencing all sorts of challenges. And I guess the most important thing that I would feel that people need to know is that there are people that haven't given up and that are continuing to fight and continuing to advocate and try to make things better.
Mm-hmm. We rub shoulders with them.
Mm-hmm. We are so incredibly fortunate to have the group of people that we have in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them are amazing mentors in academics and advocacy, and like there's just sometimes I feel like I'm living in a dream, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. And I think that is a part of the reason why, a big part of the reason why we do this.
Mm-hmm.
I do this, you do this.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to bring the conversations that we get to see, that we get to take part of, that happen in rooms that don't make the news.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Why don't they make the news?
Mm-hmm.
God damn, some of our friends, and even I would even go as far as to call them colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
They get up on that stage and they pop off, and it's just freaking wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There are conversations happening, and these conversations need to lead to action.
Yeah.
And that action needs to be seen in the public eye, because voters that have better information make better decisions.
Absolutely.
That's why we do this, my dear.
Yes, it is.
I love you.
Love you too.
I think this was great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for agreeing to it on this Mother's Day. I think what an important day to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll cap it.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. If you got anything out of that, please hit that like button at the bottom of the screen. Leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. It's so very important to us. And it's important to the algorithm. Every comment, every engagement that our content gets, it shows the algorithm that we do matter and pushes us out to more people. So do your part. If you want to join the fight, leave us a comment. It could be as simple as that. We go live as much as we can. We try to do it twice a week. We got like 290 episodes for you to catch up on all things substance use. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's all I got this week. We will see you next week. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.